Hello everyone, welcome to another movie review thing. Today we're reviewing two movies that I enjoy, which is weird. The past few months I've been reviewing trash, but today we're going to be reviewing two movies which I really enjoyed on a first watch, but on a second watch aren't the best. They're both good movies, but I would say they are flawed movies, which is what they share in common and why I want to review them together. Also because what makes both these movies special is spoilers related, like it would require me to spoil it. And I don't really want to do that because I do want to recommend these films. So these are probably going to be shorter reviews of each of these. The two movies we are reviewing today are 1114 and Time Lapse. Let's start with 1114. Now, basically it tells the story of one particular night that goes wrong for a group of individuals, and it tells the story from each of the different people's perspectives. It's got a cult following, a lot of people enjoy it, and I really enjoy it. And eventually it all comes together in the end. It's about what it sounds like. Like, I'm sure the movie you're imagining in your head, that's pretty much what you get. It's just a really fun conceit and a premise for a movie, and the way I just realized I'm filming at 24 frames per second because I was filming for my movie. This is really weird to have a video in 24 frames per second. Let me change that. So anyway, it's just really fun to get sort of these disparate pieces of information and then and its slow reveal. And sort of the dark comedy elements also really work. Although it does drag in a few points, which I do think is what hurt my attempted rewatch of this movie. Basically, I tried to rewatch this movie and it just wasn't as fun the second time around, because I think that whole conceit of the slow reveal of the plot and seeing how all of these different perspectives interact was gone. And that's not to say it's like a bad movie now, but it just loses a lot of enjoyment, which is part of why I didn't want to spoil it. But I will say part of what makes it so great and why I really enjoyed it, pretty much loved it when I first watched it, a lot of it was due to the ending. I won't spoil it, but there is one last reveal about how two characters have a connection. And if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. But right after that, and you immediately, right at the end, understand what the movie was going for and what the movie was about, really. It's tough to describe it without saying what it is, and it's just it's a perfect ending, really. And I would recommend it because I definitely see why this has a cult following and is so, like, kind of, I wouldn't say beloved, but it's really loved by a lot of people. But I feel like a second watch doesn't really hold up, which did lessen my enjoyment of the movie as a whole and my fondness for it. Now we get to Time Lapse, which is a movie which is sort of an inverse of 1114. Like, it still has some of the same problems. Like, it does drag a little bit in the middle. Specific to Time Lapse is, you can tell it is a very low budget movie, and that's not a problem, but it is just a thing that's in the back of your head. Like, there's only like 2 locations in the entire movie, but that's a small problem. Basically, I didn't even talk about what the movie was about. It is a movie about a machine that takes pictures one day into the future, which is, it's a really silly prop, but it really works. I don't know why. It's just like, it's the only thing in the movie that's kind of silly. Well, actually, there is one more thing that's kind of silly, but I won't get into that. It's a neat prop, and the fact that there's nothing else in the movie like it, for me, actually kind of works to make it this sort of otherworldly thing that sticks out. So they take pictures one day into the future, and then they start trying to use this machine for their own advantage. I'm sure you can imagine some of the things that they want to do.
What if we could use this thing?
How?
What if we put up, like, the newspaper? We would know what happens in the future.
Yeah, the newspaper, Jasper? What are you thinking, arts and entertainment, or are you thinking the race results?
Oh.
Well, what if?
But then complications arise. I won't get into that because, again, like 1114, and why I said this was kind of an inverse, was the journey of the movie is really what makes it. Like, maybe I undersold this when I was talking about 1114, but it is just so fun. The ride that the movie takes you on is really fun. And this one also has a great ending, probably even better than 1114 if I'm being honest, because why I said this was the inverse of 1114 was because I think this one holds up to multiple rewatches, mainly due to the twist, which recontextualizes a lot of the things that happen in the movie without going into spoilers. And also, I think the characters are better because they're much more defined. So much of the movie is these characters having conversations, and it doesn't feel boring or dull, which would be really easy to do. And they're also both movies that explore a good premise very well. Ultimately, I think these are both really good movies that unfortunately do suffer a bit if you decide to rewatch them. And let me get into that, because the real reason I wanted to talk about these movies is because I wanted to talk about how much a rewatch really matters. If I said 1114, it's not as good on a second watch, how big of an issue is that really? Like, oh, I loved the movie on the first watch, but the second time it didn't really work for me. Well, that's kind of, to an extent, true with every movie. Most movies will not have the same impact on you on a second viewing. You already know what the movie has to offer this time. But I feel like the movies I really love get better, or at least there are things that I can appreciate, even if it's not the same experience and it's different. Maybe I'm not as emotionally invested the second time I watch. I can still look at it and appreciate it in a different way. 1114 and to a much lesser extent Time Lapse are both movies that you watch them once and they're really fun, and then you want to watch them again and they don't work as well, which I don't think is like a critical flaw or anything. Remember at the beginning, I like both of these movies quite a bit. I think what keeps them from being like masterpieces or like one of my favorite movies or something like that is because of this issue where if I watch them again, something is missing. Which again, I get why that might not be a problem to some people, but I also don't want to forget what the first watch made me feel. Like, I disagree that the second watch just shouldn't matter and you should only take your first watch into account, because I do think it's good for a movie to be able to grow on you and to make you find more things to appreciate in it on a second or third watch. But I also disagree with the perspective that if a movie isn't as good on the second watch, that takes away from what you got out of the first watch. These movies were really entertaining, really fun, and pretty well made, and I don't want to take that away just because, oh, well, if you watch it again, then it's not as good. Think of it like this. If you watched a movie for the first time, normally, and it's just beautiful, and it's just a beautifully shot movie, but then the second time you watch it, you're forced to watch it with the screen completely black. Like, no visuals, just the audio and sound design and the dialogue and everything like that. It's the exact same movie, but then you find you like the movie less. to me what that shows is that the big aspect of that hypothetical movie that is really reeling you in and making you enjoy it were the visuals, which isn't a bad thing, but that is a good thing to notice. And that's kind of, to an extent, what has happened here. The big aspect of both of these movies is the way it divulges information to the audience. Among other things, 11-14, you get how the different perspectives interact. Time-lapse, you get the characters interacting and debating stuff. To simplify it a bit, the way it divulges information. But then on the second watch, I don't have that anymore, and now I like it less. So I don't think it's like, oh, the movie is worse on a second watch, therefore bad. It's that a second watch tells you more about the movie. And these movies, as much as I enjoy them both, got ever so slightly worse on a second watch. And I think that's a problem. And keep in mind, I really enjoyed these movies, and I am recommending them. You should see both of these movies. However you can, because they're pretty hard to come by, actually. I have time-lapse, a time-lapse DVD that is literally, the only one I could find on Amazon is a library DVD version. Let me get it. This is fucking insane. Look, look. See, time-lapse, and then it's Douglas County Libraries. This is it. This is a fucking, it's a library DVD. This is the only version I could get. So, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed my rambly thoughts on these two movies. And I hope you enjoyed these movies if you can manage to find them and watch them. Leave a like if you liked. Hit subscribe, hit the bell. See you later.